I'm Bill Ferguson, a 2005 Teach for America Corps member from the Baltimore City region. Today, I am honored to serve as one of 47 Maryland state senators, representing 130,000 proud residents and families of the 46th district. By every traditional measure, be it age, political experience, financial connections, I certainly shouldn't be a state senator. But I also shouldn't have been a public school teacher in Southwest Baltimore. I was headed into the business world, not teaching. And then I heard about this Teach for America. Fast forward a year and a half, and I'm teaching 9th and 10th graders social studies in a public school in West Baltimore. I carry scissors in my pocket because my classroom door doesn't have a doorknob, and I have to use the scissors to open and shut the door. After the last bell for the day has rung, I have 5 students pleading to help clean the room after school, not for extra credit, but because they had no programs, activities, or clubs to engage them once they left our schoolhouse doors. I quickly realized success for my students wasn't a matter of them not trying hard enough. It was the existence of systems, politics, and organizational structures that prevented them from accessing opportunity.
I'm Mike Johnston, and I'm a 1997 Delta Corps member. Yeah, Delta. It was my first field trip, and I didn't know how to drive an 18-passenger van. But fortunately, it was only 200 miles up the road from Greenville High School in Greenville, Mississippi, to Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. We had come to see the tiny 1950s gas station that had been put up as a civil rights memorial to the Little Rock Nine. I didn't know what it had to do with English 10. I just know that my students needed to see it, and I needed to see it. Tiffany and I walked past the iconic picture of Elizabeth Eckford as she walks alone being screamed at by the white students. We walked past the photo of the actual 9 black students ascending the grand steps of Central High School, being ushered by the 101st Airborne. And we walked past a picture of Governor Faubus, who stood in the doorway to try and keep those students out, and who said that making white students go to school with Negroes would be an abomination in the eyes of God and the laws of the state of Arkansas. Tiffany turned to me astonished and said, "Man, Mr. J, who makes these laws?" I started to say, "We do, Tiffany." Then I realized just how absurd that would sound. Clearly, we didn't make this law, so I said nothing.
It all really started with a set of questions asked by 8 TFA alumni sitting around one night for dinner. What if we could really leverage the energy and commitment of our TFA Corps members that are living and working in Baltimore City? Could we put together a political campaign to win against a longtime incumbent who wasn't focused on ending the achievement gap? At the beginning, the reactions were pretty universal. That state Senate seat is unwinnable. You don't have enough experience, people don't care about public education, you just can't win. But our common experiences in the city's struggling schools told us we couldn't afford to fail. So we started telling our story to the voters in Baltimore City. And we kept telling them, and we kept telling them, and we won. So today, when I get that question, "You look so young, how is it possible that you're a state senator?" my answer is always the same. I had an amazing group of teachers who believed in a powerful idea. With organized people and organized money, focused on a message that matters, anything is possible. For us, we had an urgency to build political power around closing the achievement gap. We were motivated and strategic. We decided to not let the past dictate the future, and we upended the city's political establishment. But now it's really time to get to work. What role will I play? I will live up to the expectations and hopes of the amazing students, teachers, and alums who made all of this possible.
It was 11:42 p.m. on May 12th. the last day of my first legislative session. After passing the Senate, my bill was stalled in the House. And in 18 minutes, when the clock struck midnight, the bill would die on the clock. After defending 204 amendments, I was now being filibustered by my own party on the floor of the Colorado House of Representatives. I watched from the gallery. Called by many the most controversial education bill that Colorado had seen in 50 years, at stake was the simple idea that in Colorado, we will make sure that every student grows every year, no matter how dark their skin, or how thick their wallets, or how full their bookshelves. And we will make every decision, who we hire, who we tenure, who we fire, based on how those teachers and principals actually affect student learning. A state rep stood up on the floor of the House of Representatives and said that for teachers to expect some kinds of kids to grow would be like asking a baker to make a bread with maggot-infested flour. Too angry to speak, too stunned to move, I stood speechless in the gallery. I looked at the clock. How long? How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. While they had peddled fear, we had planted hope. We had already picked up the last vote 2 days earlier in an old classroom in my district, where a second-year Corps member brought 5 of her students and sat them down with a state rep who couldn't make up her mind. Governors and senators and neighbors and family members had been calling this woman for weeks. But when she walked out of that classroom with our kids that day, she picked up the phone and called me and said she was a yes. And so at 11:50, with 10 minutes to go, just as planned, chaos gave way to clarity, and the bill was called up for a vote, and it passed. And as I walked down the grand Capitol steps, another legislator, a fellow Democrat, stopped to hurl 3 expletives at me. But as I walked outside, the Colorado air had an odd warmth to it, like the cape of a delta wind during track practice. I needed a phone. I needed to call Tiffany and tell her I had an answer to her question now. Man, Mr. J, who makes these laws? We do, Tiffany. We do. What role will I play? I will make sure our laws are written for Tiffany.